end of life expectancy of a unit. Can you explain what that kind of term means to the buyer?
Everything has its lifespan. Lifespan of a water heater, 8 to 12 years. We have seen some from the 50s. Roofs, there's typically a 20-year shingle, a 30-year shingle, and now there's a 50-year shingle.
They have sections where they're kind of color-coded.
Red is safety, blue is maintenance, orange recommendations. Typically the reds are the ones that are really important.
Things you don't test.
If you take the home and you tip it upside down, anything that falls on the floor, the sellers can potentially take.
Personal belongings versus real estate.
Yeah, we want to give you all the information so you can make the decision.
Hey, Dan Gavay here from the Real Estate Team, and I'm here with Mark from Stryler Home Inspections. Mark, thanks for coming in today.
Dan, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Anytime. So we're going to drop some knowledge on home inspections, the importance of the inspections and what the process is. And we'll just start out by saying, what is a home inspection, state of Massachusetts guidelines, I guess?
So it's a basic overview of whatever's readily accessible during the day of the inspection and stuff like that. We have to be kind of careful what we can and can't do. We don't take stuff apart. We don't dismantle things. You know, unfortunately, if there's stuff in the way, we try to get it out. But it's a really good snapshot of what we see on that day, which is visibly accessible. So that's kind of what we do. Obviously, we dig a little bit deeper, right? We spend a lot of time in the basement. That's the most important area. And then we'll do the outside, the interior, we'll run all the appliances and stuff like that. Well, we're looking at doors, windows, plugs. I think in our report, there's actually 700 points or maybe even more than that.
Yep.
That goes into the report. So when it's all done on site with the buyer, we make a really good report, and we really try to bring the buyer in with us while we're doing the inspection, so it's not such a big daunting task that night when they do receive the inspection.
Well, I can tell you firsthand, I've seen your reports. They're put together very well. They're easy to read. They have sections where they're kind of color-coded.
Yes.
Can you explain the color-coded and how that works?
Yep. So we jump everything into a color coding, right? Red is safety, blue is maintenance, orange recommendations.
Okay.
And that's how you want to handle it when you get the report, and you will get it that night, and those are the areas you want to focus on. Typically the reds, those are the important things. It's a safety inspection. It's not a standard inspection and stuff like that. We don't like to use the word code, so it's a safety inspection. So, and that's what you really want to focus on. And typically the reds are the ones that are really important.
What are some of the, things that you see, some of the major things that come out with most of the inspections that a buyer may want to be concerned with, or maybe get a second opinion from a licensed contractor in that field?
Yeah, the most important is the basement. And the most important part of the basement is the structural component, all right? We're in Taunton, the surrounding areas, we do go into some really old homes. So the structural is so important. That's exactly where I focus on first. While I'm in the basement, that's one thing that'll typically derail a home inspection at times, and also cause some hurdles for you now to jump and stuff like that. When I do see some structural stuff, we'll ask for a second opinion. Structural, electrical is usually the next one, because that can be a problem as well.
So structural engineers licensed in that category?
Sometimes you don't have to go as deep as a structural engineer. Sometimes it's just getting a foundation contractor, somebody that deals with foundations every day, okay? As home inspectors, we're generalists, all right? We don't do foundations every day. So if you bring in, Peter from the form place, and he deals with this every day, he has a really good understanding.
Right.
As home inspectors, we have a general understanding. Like, this is going to sound a little pretentious, and it doesn't mean to be, but like, I'm your primary care physician. Like, I can do your whole body, right? I know a little bit about your elbow, your knee, and stuff like that. But if you have an earlobe problem, I'm going to refer you out to a specialist, all right? And sometimes that's what your home inspector will do. He'll refer you out to that specialist, and then again, once he comes there and does his thing, we now always defer to that guy, okay? We're never going to go against what the electrician says, because that's what he does.
Makes sense,
and that's kind of what we do.
All right, so you got structural. What would be the next piece?
So structural, I usually work on water after that, plumbing, main line, stuff like that. Water heaters are always important. And then I go to heating with your furnace or your boiler, depending on, and now I'm seeing a lot of mini splits and stuff like that. We'll work on the heating system.
Mini splits would be the units on the wall.
Yeah, the
that does your
ductless.
AC and
yeah,
heat
those are
together.
really becoming really, really popular.
Okay.
And then we'll spend some time on the electrical component too. We'll take the cover off the panel. We'll nose around inside the panel, looking for mice. We're looking for bad wiring, looking for incorrect wire sizes.
Moisture.
Yeah, moisture, absolutely. There's a ton of things that we look for, and that's why we try to do a really good job on site with the buyer, explaining it to them like, hey, this should be addressed at some point. This is a little bit more important, all right, and this isn't a huge big deal, but get it addressed. So.
Okay, excellent. And then how about things like mold or
Yep.
You know, usually attics and basements are the typical places for those.
Those are the favorites. For
Moisture,
mold.
lack of airflow.
So for me, moisture, right? Moisture intrusion, one of the most important things and one of the easiest things you can do, and that's for any homeowner, beginning, novice, or expert, you got to extend those downspouts. All right, let's get all our downspouts away from the home. Let's fix all our grading on the outside so nothing's pitching back toward the home. Those two simple fixes can produce such a large return. Before you go calling a basement company, go to the home store and buy the accordion. Extend your downspout as far as you can. Make sure you don't have any holes, anything pitching back. Those are things that'll really help with that moisture intrusion because, now you're talking about mold.
Right.
So we're looking for it. We actually have two types of testing. We have a mold swab. We can actually swab a surface and get a sample. And we have an air quality machine that'll take an air quality sample from the basement, first floor, and the exterior, and we send it out to the lab, and then you'll know what you have for air quality too. So those are really important. And then in the attic as well.
So we're talking about getting the water away from your foundation. That's what you want to do is when that water's coming down, get it far away. Otherwise, it can work its way inside, through the outside of the foundation, working its way through. As you know, cement is porous.
Absolutely.
And that will come through. So make sure you shed all your water away is very important. Make sure your gutters are clean, the maintenance type of
that's a
thing,
good
right?
one. Yeah.
So a mold and fires like attics, like talk about like some kind, and there sometimes you could have like over insulation and doesn't breathe, and there's a lot of situations where maybe it doesn't have a proper venting in the roof.
That's really important. Proper venting is probably one of the most important things, and secondary to that is that bath vent. How many times have we seen a bath vent exhaust into an attic
It
and
doesn't actually go outside. It's just
Right.
laying,
It's just right in
laying
there
in the
and
attic.
it
I've
just-
actually seen that in new construction as well. It's
Right?
not just older homes.
So there's a couple different things now, and there's some new standards as far as ventilation and stuff. Sometimes houses don't have any ventilation anymore, and there's actually a unit that'll actually do it for the home. But we're looking for soffit, ridge venting, stuff like that, fans and stuff. It's really important to have the correct ventilation because it's going to prematurely age your shingles if you don't have proper ventilation, and you can actually get the M word, so it's really important.
How come when you go in the attic sometimes you see sometimes on one side of the roof it can look like black mold and discoloration, but the other side seems to be super
Completely
clean?
fine. It's usually the bath vent or the actual attic access. So whether it's a scuttle or a pull down, if you don't have your access insulated as well, now all your home heat is going into your attic, and typically it's usually on that side, and sometimes there's actually like a furnace in the attic, and that produces a little bit of a temperature change, so you have to watch it. But we have seen it, right? The whole back of the house is covered, and the whole front's completely looks like brand new.
Now, I'm not sure if this is a myth or not, but I was told at some point that the air temperature in the attic should be similar to what's outside. And that's how you know there's good venting, if it's kind of the same as the outside,
You're right,
correct?
You're absolutely right. Yep. That attic should be the same temperature as the exterior, summer or winter. So that's exactly what you want, and that gives you the proper ventilation, and that's what you want.
So just kind of a quick telltale.
Yeah.
You go up in that attic and there's a different temperature than outside, chances are there's some venting issues.
You never want to go in your attic in the winter and have it be warm.
Right.
You're asking for ice dams. You're asking for a problem, and vice versa. You really want it the same temperature. So anytime we do attics in the summer, expect to hit 130 degrees.
Yeah.
Sometimes even more than that. So
Now, a term I hear a lot in home inspections as when you look at systems and they're working, they're functional, they seem to be updated well, end of life expectancy of a unit. Can you explain what that kind of term means to the buyers?
Everything has a life expectancy, just like you and I, this bottle of water. Everything does. And as home inspectors, we have a really good knowledge of how long a furnace typically lasts. 25 years. A boiler, 40 years. And these are averages, obviously. Everything's different, climates and stuff like that.
Maintenance, how you keep up on it.
Maintenance is really,
quality
really
of
important.
what you buy.
Really important. So everything has its lifespan. And if we ever see something that we feel is close to the end, we'll always tell you and let you know, like, hey, it's getting there. Average lifespan of a water heater, 8 to 12 years. We have seen some from the 50s.
Right.
And these are all averages, and they all have to be taken into consideration, different factors and stuff like that. But roofs. There's typically a 20-year shingle, a 30-year shingle, and now there's a 50-year shingle. So these are all things that you want to know, especially as first-time home buyers. Those are my people. Those are the ones that I really want to help. Somebody like you have a basic knowledge, you have a good working knowledge, but these kids that come in that know nothing, you really want to protect them. You really want to educate them so they can make that informed decision.
So in our area, there's a lot of high water table towns and areas, and of course with the snow and ice melt,
Yep.
different water tables, right? So a lot of buyers freak out when there's sump pumps in there, right? So what
Absolutely.
can you tell us about a sump pump? Is it like run from a sump pump? Not necessarily like,
Yeah.
okay, there's two sumps in here. Maybe we got to how do you gauge
So
that?
one sump pump, I'm like, all right. So let's say you bought your first house and your basement flooded.
Yeah.
Every subsequent house you buy, you're gonna be proactive and you're gonna put a sump pump in. So
Right.
sometimes it's not always needed. Sometimes
Because
it's
of the
that.
past experience.
Yeah. That I think it was what, probably, I can't even remember, like maybe 9 years ago, everybody got water that necessarily never had it.
Yeah.
You saw everybody put a sump pump
Home Depot and Lowe's ran out of them like in a couple
it
days.
happens. So it's a environmental thing. Every situation's different. What I tell my clients is you got to go in the basement. You got to go in the basement on a regular basis. I tell my clients before, during, and after a major weather event, take a walk in your basement. Okay, no basement, as far as I'm concerned, is 100% waterproof.
Right.
Nature will find her way. So yeah, sump pumps aren't always a bad thing, but you got to take into a lot of factors. Obviously, if you go in a house with 3 sump pumps and it's constantly run the entire inspection, you're like, hey, we're probably pumping out, Sebacia Lake.
It was built on a river. on a
Absolutely, it's
stream.
happened. It's happened. But if it's bone dry and there's crickets in it and cobwebs and it hasn't been used for 50 years, it could have been just one of those times. So,
In ground soils and conditions too. Like I own a property that has a lot of clay.
Yeah.
As you know, it doesn't drain well. So
Yep.
I have 2 sump pumps. You know, and so a lot of the times you don't know the ground conditions under there can not really be leaching as well.
yeah, there's 20 different things at every home inspection, but every home inspection is different. It's all those kind of things that we and there's so many different factors, and that's the one fun part of my job is I get to kind of like poke around and nose around and investigate and try to figure things out. That's when I really have fun.
And I happen to own a few properties that have the old rock foundations.
Oh my
so
goodness,
you can never keep those dry.
No,
It's
they're
always
inherently
seeping through,
porous.
so,
Yeah, it's Swiss cheese.
It was really meant to hold the house up structure, not to finish off, not to have in most cases they had dirt basements.
Yep.
They didn't have slabs, and then people want to finish them. They put slabs in, and now you create a problem because you have a slab.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it might seep in and go
And it
through
was
the dirt.
true. Yeah.
Right?
So,
now you put a slab in, now all of a sudden I have a problem, right? Because
Yeah,
there's water.
stone and mortar foundations are inherently porous.
So-
You got to keep up with the mortar joints and stuff like that. And a lot of those homes didn't have gutters back in the day, and now some people don't want to put a gutter on this, older home for aesthetic reasons. But water management, man, it makes such a big difference in a basement.
Yeah. So let's talk about pests.
Okay,
They like to come in the house.
they most certainly
They
do.
want food, they want water, and they
Yeah.
want a warm place to stay.
That sounds awfully familiar. That sounds awfully. What's your favorite new term? Mouse grease, right?
Mouse grease, yeah.
So we're looking for well, the size of my finger. That's all it takes, Dan.
That's
for
incredible,
a mouse, right?
Like, you look at that.
Size of my thumb for a rat. It's amazing how they can squeeze in.
Yeah.
So we're always telling people, get all your vegetation away. All right. I know we like the birds and stuff like that, but bird feeders, they're going to draw in pests and stuff
Oh, I
like
didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Remove that food source, right? Roll up your pet
Put that
food.
bird feeder further in the backyard.
If you can, keep your pet food in a plastic container and cover it. Stuff like that. Check your pantry. But look for those exit holes. Those are the entrance points. And like I said, if you give me some time, we can actually find the highways, and we have. So pests can be a problem. Everybody has mice. I don't care who you are. People tell me all the time I don't have mice. I'm like, give me 10, 15 minutes. I bet you I can find some.
And they come out when you're asleep.
Yeah, they move around when it's quiet, They're just like us, just like you said. They're just looking for a warm place to
So
hang out.
that's why you
and
don't think you
food
have them.
source.
You can't catch them because
Yeah.
And how about things like carpenter ants, termites? Like, I know there's companies out there that have treatments, right, to keep them away. Sometimes, someone might have a wood pile right next to their house, and they're all in that wood pile and eating up the wood pile, which is good instead of your house. But eventually, they might
They might
move
run
over.
out. Yeah.
Right.
So we don't like anything up against the house. We don't like any wood up near the house. We also don't like our siding to touch the ground. Sometimes you'll go to a home and the vinyl will be right on the
Especially on
ground.
the ranches on a slab.
Right? So now you have no way to kind of monitor. At least if I have 6 inches, I can walk your foundation and I can look for the mud tubes. I can look for the live, ants and stuff like that. Yeah, that's things you want to watch for.
Those ranches on slabs, 9 times out of 10, those sills is like everything's low.
Yeah. So it's there. All your trees, get all your trees away. And when we're in the basement, we'll all go around. We all have different ways of doing it, but you'll hear all our inspectors, they're just poking around. We're checking that sill. We're looking for the mud tubes. We're looking for frass, from carpenter ants and stuff like that. So we know the signs to look for.
Well, I know you guys have some really neat tools.
Yeah.
You have a gun, is an infrared gun,
Yep.
and kind of tell us what that gun does.
Chuck keeps us outfitted with all the top-notch tools. We get all the good stuff. We got a drone. We have the infrared cameras. Chuck has a crawl bot that'll go into manufactured
I've seen
homes,
that, yeah.
right?
The
One of the
robot
coolest things.
goes underneath the house.
He sits in the
crawl
living
spaces.
room and with his remote, and he'll go through with the buyer, showing them exactly. He goes, "Oh, there's a dead mouse there.
pictures, yeah.
You got a plumbing leak there." All from the comfort of the living
Yeah.
room. It's amazing. Yeah, we have that, and we have all the mold testing. We have the radon testing as well. We do water testing.
Yeah, radon test. Let's talk about that. There's a couple
Absolutely.
different. You have the charcoals and the electrical meter, and how's that all?
So we moved away from the charcoals. We didn't like them, and now Chuck has the continuous radon monitors, and they'll come out and they sit for 48 hours, and they get picked up, and it's amazing. You can
just
actually
plug
see,
them in, AC
Yeah.
power. They
Yep.
sit there for that. Okay.
and you can actually see for 48 hours. You can
Yeah.
see and it'll give you an average of the radon. You know,
Yes.
sometimes it spikes, sometimes it's low, and we always tell people just go by the average. And it's
Right.
really, really important. Within 48 hours, we can tell if you tamper with it, whether you move
I was
it
just
and
going to
stuff
say,
like
they're
that.
tamper-proof.
Yeah, they're really
Don't
nice.
move 'em.
Yep. Sometimes we get a chance. We'll come out before, and I'll take the monitor home with me, and now you get same-day results, which is amazing.
Right. And the charcoal is like the old canisters.
Yeah.
You open it up and it
Yep.
goes in there. For
Very
a couple
easily
days,
manipulated.
Send it out to the lab.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So these are much quicker, much more accurate.
And what is radon?
Radon is a colorless, odorless gas that comes up through the bedrock and settles in basements. It's a second leading cause of cancer in non-smokers, so you need a high level for extended periods to affect you. So if you're ever not sure, there's only one way to know whether or not you have radon. It's to test.
Yeah.
You know, you could have it in your house, and as your neighbor, I could have nothing, or vice
Right.
versa.
Right.
It's seasonal sometimes, you know, and people say, well, I live in Quincy, it's quarry, we've got to have radon. I've not found it in Quincy, and I found it down the Cape, where it's all sand. So it's completely random. So the only way to know is to actually get testing.
Okay. And what's the fix to that if the levels are too high by state level?
It's actually
what do you do with that?
a fairly simple fix. You get a company to come in, they'll core a hole in the basement floor, and then they'll just vent it outside.
Like a PVC pipe I've
The
seen.
PVC pipe, yep. And there's
Okay.
an inline fan
Yeah,
that now
it's kind
just
of a little
creates.
computer fan. It doesn't take a lot of power. Just
Yep.
keeps going.
It's
right?
a little bit bigger than a computer fan. Like
Okay.
you can hear it humming, but
Yeah.
yeah. And
But something 24/7 it runs.
yeah, it just creates a little area, low pressure, and radon will just now follow that way, and it'll go right outside.
Yeah, and I think there's a little gauge on the side of it that
There
shows
is, yep.
that it's
Yep,
working.
there's a little tube with water in it, and I've done a couple videos where you pull it out and you can see the gauge and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. So that pulls it out to the outside radon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And I know they have some air systems too. If it really gets to a point where they have an air radon system where it actually pulls the air out.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different.
know,
There's
versus
the
underneath,
recoveries. Yep.
you know.
There's a bunch of different ways, but the only way, get it tested, figure out your levels,
Yeah.
and then talk to your companies that kind of do that.
Great. Which brings me into the next thing is radon can be in your well water. What can you tell me about well water and what do you do with testing well water?
Okay, we all had a fish tank when we were a kid, right? Remember those silly little air stones that we used to put in the fish tank to keep the fish alive?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing with radon. So just like radon, you're just ventilating, right? So you're opening the doors, you're getting that ventilation, you're getting fresh air that dissipates the radon. It's the exact same thing in water with radon. They'll bring, have you ever seen one? It's like this giant like tub, you know, on a container, and it's just, you'll hear it and it sounds like those air stones. And
I
it's
don't
just,
think I've seen one of those.
yeah, it's
It's
just
underground. It's tied
no,
into
they're
your
right
well.
in the basement.
Okay, but
They're
it's
usually
tied
right
into
in
your
the
well.
basement. Yeah.
The well water comes into
Yep.
that before it goes to the
And
house.
there's like a giant air stone, and it's just bubbling. It's just ventilating the water, and it's now dissipating the radon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't they have like those UV lights or something for that too? Is there a UV light?
There
that's
might be
made
like
for-
something like that. I've seen them like for water filtration and stuff
Okay,
like
I've
that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Again, that's
they have
kinda,
a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
that
and
they
it's
handle things like that.
that's kind of out of our realm,
Yeah.
so we have to be really, really careful
Yeah.
and stuff like that. What we test and we don't test for. So.
Right. A quality test of rather than quantity is the pump and the velocity and is the
Yep.
pump working?
Yep.
Which most of the time someone that's like a well technician will kind of look
Yeah.
into that, right? But
We
as far
no
as-
longer do quantity.
Quantity.
We just do quality now,
Right,
where
right.
we'll take a sample and we'll send it to our lab, and there's a bunch of different. There's a standard scan and there's an
Right.
environmental scan.
Right.
There's a comprehensive one, and they're all different and stuff like that. So we'll take a sample and we'll send it out to the lab. But we can test for. There's like two big ones, right? It's E. coli and coliform.
Right.
Those are the two big ones,
right.
and radon.
Right. So guys, if you're out there looking at homes and it's a private well, you want to be aware of that. You have the quality tests, which is the actual the chemical of the water, is it safe for drinking, taking a bath, so forth. And then you have the quantity test, which is this well going to run dry, right? Is it a shallow well that's down 30, 40 feet, or is it a drilled well down 300 feet in the earth? Is it artesian? So there's a lot of different types of wells. You want to really be up on that and talk to your advisor on that and the home inspector and have it tested, because you certainly don't want to be running your house and then all of a sudden a couple hours later you run out of water, especially with the shallow systems.
We recommend every 2 years get your water tested.
Yeah.
What I try to tell people is we do it, but there are other companies out there. What I try to steer people away from is doing it like at the home store. I always feel like the people at the home store are trying to sell you a system, so you want to go to an independent lab that really doesn't, they just want to test the water. They don't want to sell you something.
Things you don't test: septic systems.
Yep.
Some appliances. Some.
Yeah, we don't do washer dryers.
Yep.
So basically, if you take the home and you tip it upside down, anything that falls on the floor, the sellers can potentially take.
Right.
All right, so we're looking for things
personal
that are fixed.
belongings versus real estate.
Yeah, curtains, right? We don't test that kind of stuff.
Right.
The microwave, as long as it's attached.
Built
the
in.
dishwasher, we're going to
Built
test the
in,
stove,
yeah.
garbage disposal, stuff like that. We don't test the fridge.
Right.
But washer dryers, we don't test those either.
Right.
Septic systems, we don't give you any type of. We try to stay away from quantity, quality, and factor values, anything like that.
So if you have a septic system, the seller, in most cases, is going to hire a Title V inspector that's licensed through the state to do an inspection on that system to make sure it's within working order of the Board of Health and other, town officials and guidelines. So, that's a whole different person that handles that.
Yep.
So, okay, so back to home inspections. You have your general inspections. You can refer inspections to other contractors if things come up, as you mentioned. You mentioned the contractors and structural engineers and things like that. Anything else that you can think of that we haven't touched on in the home as far as what you test for? I know there's windows, doors,
Yep.
all those types of things.
So I'll kind of give you like a brief. I kind of touched on it in the beginning. So we're going to do the exterior, right? We're going to make sure there's no flashing issues. We're going to check your chimney. We're going to check your roof. We're going to throw the drone up. We're going to really dive into the roof. We're going to check all your roof venting, the boot around the stink pipe and stuff like that. That's a common one. We'll check that. We're going to check your AC systems. In certain times, there are times when we can't turn the AC on,
so
right, during the winter.
You got to be under a certain, what's the degrees?
It's got to be over 65 degrees
turn on the
more than a
compressor
couple
and the
days,
AC,
because we
yeah.
can actually ruin it. And then sometimes in the summer, it's tough to turn the heat on because some of these newer systems actually have little thermostats where they won't. But we'll do the best we can and stuff like that. We're going to test all the outside. We're going to comment on the grading and the drain decks, right? We really go hard with decks because you and I can build a deck on the
Safety, yeah.
weekend doesn't mean we should. So we're really checking all the safety stuff with the decks and stuff like that.
Make sure the footings are good.
Windows,
lagged and
doors.
attached. You see it a lot of times where they're not actually lagged and attached
That's a
to
big one,
the
right?
house. They're just nailed
Yep.
in.
Yeah, you want to make sure that they're lagged into that ledger board. You also want to make sure that all your posts have bearing. All right, there was an older practice where you would just marry it like that and throw a couple carriage bolts in it, or sometimes even nails. So that rim joist really needs to be supported properly and connected properly to those posts. So these are things we're looking for. Your AC condensers and stuff like that, your gutters, your downspouts, your grading, your retaining walls, and of course, our favorite thing, handrails, right? We want to be making sure all your handrails are intact where they need to be and stuff like that.
And some loans will, also,
Right?
the FHA loans,
Yeah.
VA loans, they're very strict on safety type items, loose steps, loose bricks, handrails, cracked windows, things like
Paint,
peel
right?
and
Some
paint.
paint, yeah.
And not just peel and paint on your house, it's also the shed. Outside buildings as well. A lot of people don't, know that. So, that's when you get into some of the different. And talk to your lender based on what loan you're going for, and see if there's any specific condition and items for the house itself. They have to be in a certain minimum, condition and so forth to be able to get financing. Because that's a conversation you're going to have with the sellers and the seller's agent, with your buyer's agent, before you kind of negotiate and put offers and so forth. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to touch on too, a lot of people feel like if I point out that this water bottle is at the end of the life, it has to be taken care of. So as home inspectors, everything we say is just recommendations, right? The buyer doesn't have to fix it, the seller doesn't have to fix it, but if we see it, you're going to know about it, and we put it in the report. Some buyers really feel like every little thing that we point out as inspectors has to be addressed.
Yeah.
It's not the way it
And
is.
don't forget, you're buying a used home.
That's also
right?
the
And it's a
case,
used
yeah.
home price. It's not a new home price. So there's got to be some safety issues, of course.
And
But the little
Yeah.
things that add up,
you really want to work with an inspection company that's going to explain these things to you, that's going to walk with you and work with you the entire time. You want somebody that'll be able to answer questions. You want an inspector that wants you to invite you into the inspection. You want to kind of steer away from a guy that says, you stay right here, I'll go do my thing and I'll come back and report. No, I want you right there with me a majority of the time so you and I can kind of talk about it, because when you do get the report, it can be daunting. It is scary. It's 70 pages long. We put big red arrows, but if you and I have talked about it on site,
You get it.
it's not quite as scary. And then you want to be able to pick up the phone. You want to send us an email. You want to be able to reach out and get clarification, and you want to be available. And we do a really good job with our customer service.
So, Mark, from being in the business, a long time, you have been as well, is you see a lot of buyers have lost properties during, after a home inspection, right? They get alarmed about things that maybe weren't really a big issue, but they get scared and they back out and they lose a great home. And so you've seen some of that, I'm sure, about certain
Absolutely.
items. I mean, certainly you want to make sure that the major things are taken care of, but a lot can, like you mentioned, it's a daunting task. It's a lot of reporting, and that could be a lot for a buyer to kind of ingest. So what do you think about that as far as
It's interesting. Everyone has different tolerances. I find that like people in the medical field are a little bit more concerned with like mold and stuff like that,
Oh,
where
okay,
other
good
people
point.
aren't, structural issues and stuff like that. Yeah, for me, it's not what I say, it's how I say it. I mean, yes, you can absolutely scare the crap out of a buyer if I walk around the corner and I go, oh my God. That's one thing. There's one thing Chuck told me at the very beginning when he was training me. He's like, don't ever say that again. And he was right. I came around the corner, I think a light bulb may have popped in my hand or something, and I made this really big noise, and he's like, don't ever say that again. I'm like, okay, I'll never say that again. So yeah, you have to, that comes back to my tagline, right? Education over exaggeration. I'm going to try to educate you as best I can, and I'm going to try not to exaggerate the fact that that plant is dying and your house is going to fall down. That's not it. And you really want to work with somebody that'll explain things to you better, and you really want to kind of, we have to kind of walk the line and kind of stay right there in flat line. We want to give you all the information so you can make the decision.
Right.
We would never say, hey, don't buy this house. Are you crazy? You can't, stuff like that. So I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to show you what's there. I'm going to explain to you what's there. And then sometimes I'll walk away. I'm like, do you need a minute? And I won't move on until you're ready to move on to the next section. So yeah, it's very, very careful. But I have heard horror stories of, they're called the alarmists and stuff like that, guys that really scare the crap out of people.
Yeah.
I mean, if I need to scare the crap out of you because it's a really bad home and there's structural issues, I have ways of doing that, but that's not my norm.
Right.
I want to get you in a house, but I want to get you in a good house. I want to get you in a safe house. We're all working for the same goal. We want to find these kids a home, but we just want to find the right home for them. Can we talk about dads for a little bit at the home inspection? I know that's kind of a hot
dads,
button talking.
uncles, the whole family coming.
That's the same,
I'm a
right?
listing agent. I'm going in to open up to be there during the inspection. The buyer's there and the buyer's agent's there, which is expected. The home inspector's there.
Yeah.
A few more cars pull up. Then
be
it's
fun.
the whole
It could be fun.
family.
Yeah.
And then my sellers are like, who are all these people in my house?
Right,
There's
right.
like 20 people.
My deal with dads, I'm one of them, unfortunately. I'm a dad.
I
so,
am too. So I get it.
I understand they're there, right? They're protecting their child's interest, and that's what I want them to do. But I want them to be kind of realistic. If dad hasn't bought a home in 20 years, unfortunately, he doesn't know how it works. And I have a lot of dads come in and go, that's not code, that needs to be fixed. That's not kind of what we do. So as an industry, and as in you too, we have to manage expectations a little bit better, and we have to educate the people that are coming into these home inspections like, hey, this isn't a pass-fail. This isn't a code inspection, okay? This is a safety inspection, and you got to kind of be realistic. I've only had maybe one or two dads that I've been at odds at, but I'm really good at managing personalities with my background and stuff like that. So, but I understand it, I get it, and they're there for the right reasons. They're not usually there, and unfortunately, it's just a lot of, they just don't know how things work now. It's not like it used to be 20, 30 years ago. It has changed. So.
Well, as a realtor, the part that I see is that a lot of the extended family has had bad experiences, and certainly they don't want that for their family member.
Absolutely.
So they're telling them about all the bad stories and all the horror stories that's happened.
Yeah.
And the buyers can obviously get very afraid of that, because they're like, is that going to be my situation?
Yep, absolutely.
So they're on high alert when they come into the home inspection because they hear all these bad stories, right? There's a lot of good stories out there as well, but certainly You know, I can definitely see how that's important to manage the expectations up front, respect that they're there. You have
Absolutely.
your job to do. And, you know, they talk to it as a family and decide what they want to do after they get the report, look everything over.
I'll bring a dad right with me. I'm like, come on, Dad, come in. What do you think? What do you see? You know, I'll bring them right into the inspection. It's a lot of making them feel comfortable too. They want to know that you have some capabilities and you have the knowledge to help their children as well. So I try to like let them know like, hey, I'm here for the same thing. I'm protecting your kids too. I'm looking at this home like my kids are going to buy it. You know, I have 4 daughters. I want somebody to take care of my kids like I try to take care of other people's kids. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, I'm all out of questions. You did a great job today. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. If you have any further questions about the inspection process, or maybe you need a recommendation in your area, your state, how do we reach out to you, Mark, and
Website,
company?
StrilaHI.com. That's the best way to get a hold of everybody there. We're all there. You can schedule their online booking. You can call the office too. Megan and Jess do an amazing job in the office, so
Yeah.
you're very well taken care of. We have a really good team. It's an amazing family. Everyone in the company is just amazing, and everyone works for that common goal, and we're all on the same page. We all have little different personalities and stuff like that, but every person there is amazing, and we're all there to kind of help that buyer get to that finish line.
If you guys have any questions, you can direct message us, leave a comment. Mark has a great social media presence. You can look him up there, follow us for more future videos and tips, and we hope this has been helpful. And Mark, thanks for coming in. I
Anytime.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Enjoy the 4th.
Yes, you too.
Take care.